Library Advisory Committee. Happy to see you all relaxed after a nice food coma after Thanksgiving. And we're rolling into the holidays. So the very first item on our agenda are approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Did everyone receive those from Claudia? She'd sent out an email. It's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Should be a 6-page document. Have you had an opportunity to look over those? Are there any edits, corrections? Claudia, I did have a question. I thought that there was a retirement. Looking at the staffing section. His name escapes me at the moment. Jeff?
That was during this year. These are the minutes from the 2023 meeting.
Okay.
That he went in August, so he's going to be mentioned in this coming report.
I see. What was his last name?
Jeff Dowd, supervising law librarian.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Judge, I'd like to move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Excellent.
Second.
Thank you, Attorney Clendon. A second? Was there a second there?
That.
Yes. Okay. Judge Clark is second that. All right. Very good. The minutes are accepted. Okay. Claudia, please give us an update on law library operations, budget, staffing, staff activities, and any initiatives we should know about.
All righty. I'll start off with the budget for fiscal year 25. In April, each of the libraries and the administrative office prepared joint projections based on FY24 allocations and expenditures for print materials and online services, calculating in contractual obligations and anticipated increases. So the budget for fiscal year 25 is $1,187,783, or just shy of 1.2 million. As to staffing, since the last meeting of the advisory committee back in December of 2023, we've had the following changes. For the Putnam Law Library, on January 5th, 2024, Law Librarian Nicholas Beams resigned. On January 12th, we received permission to post for the law librarian position in Putnam. On March 8th, Amara Johnson joined the Law Library Services as the new Putnam Law Librarian. In September, Law Librarians Anna Dauphiny from Bridgeport and Amara Johnson in Putnam requested to swap duty stations. That request was granted and the transfer was effective on November 1st. As of today, the Putnam Law Library is now on a Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. schedule. Retirements, Judge Tyndall is correct. On August 30th, supervising law librarian Jeffrey Dowd retired after 28 plus years with Law Library Services. And Jeff leaves behind a notable legacy that positively impacts both the Law Library Services unit and the branch as a whole. Jeff was the first chair of the Law Library Services Webs Committee and oversaw the development of the Law Library Services website. He also served on the Judicial Branch's web board and has had a significant impact on the content and appearance of the branch's website. We held 2 gatherings to wish Jeff well for both the law librarians and other judicial personnel. One was held in a courtroom in the Hartford Family Courthouse, and the other was in the Jury Assembly Room in Middletown. And on September 30th, New Haven librarian Astoria Ridley retired after 18 years with Law Library Services. As to promotions, we had 2 law librarians who completed their probationary periods during the past year and were promoted to Law Librarian 2. They were Emily Berardino in the New Britain Law Library and Rebecca Greenlee in the Danbury Law Library. And following a recruitment, Emily Almano from the Rockville Law Library was approved for promotion to the position of supervising law librarian. Emily will assume that role on December 13th. And Emily is here if she'd like to unmute and wave so everyone can meet her.
Hello.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Emily.
And lastly, on staffing for the Hartford Law Library, this past Monday, December 2nd, we received approval to hire an additional law librarian for the Hartford Law Library. That position was posted on the branch's website this morning. Status of the libraries. Currently, all judicial branch law libraries are open on a Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. schedule. Any temporary changes to a specific library schedule is posted on the Law Library Services website and on our news log. For fiscal year 2024, in-library usage increased 11% from fiscal year 2023, with usage by self-represented parties going up 23%. Correspondingly, computer use increased 20%, and the use of print resources increased 15%. For fiscal year 2024, group purchasing, excluding Walter Kluwer titles, saved a total of $19,565 for the law libraries, with an average discount of 22%. So far in fiscal year 2025, it has saved $1,478 with an average discount of 15%. Walter Kluwer titles are excluded since a 90% price reduction on titles is included in the Vital Law Agreement. In January, the Law Library Services administrative team accepted the responsibility of looking for and obtaining articles on artificial intelligence for the Judge Support Services unit as part of a branch-wide initiative. Monthly compilations of materials were gathered and provided to Deirdre McPadden and to the External Affairs Unit. That assignment ended in June. In February, the management team with Don Ashley, the Director of Materials Management, began negotiating with LexisNexis regarding renewal of the Superior Court contract. The vendor is retiring the Lexis Advance platform, and the new contract is for the Lexis Plus platform. In June, the agreement for Lexis Plus was signed and access to the platform commenced on July 1st. Supervising Law Librarian Chris Rory worked with the vendor to facilitate the smooth transition to the new platform and to provide technical and training support as needed. In June, several librarians, including the supervisors, tested a new patron access computer desktop interface that the Judge Support Services IT unit and the Information Technology Division jointly created. Starting in August, the new interface was rolled out to each library as their computers were replaced during a PC refresh project in which all computers, staff and public, were replaced and updated. The PC refresh project for all staff and public computers was completed in October. Jeff Dowd contacted the Judicial Translating Services to translate the Law Library Services instructions for filling out the Audita Corella sample form into Spanish. Only the instructions were translated. The sample form itself was not. This will assist many of the library users for whom Spanish is their primary language and have been instructed by either legal aid or the clerk's office to contact the law libraries to request a sample of this form. On July 29th, the management team and Don Ashley met with representatives from Thomson Reuters West to begin discussion for renegotiating the Patron Access Westlaw contract. On September 19th, a 5-year agreement was signed with an effective date of November 1st. In late July and August, the management team met with Loria Palitz, Deputy Director for Materials Management, and her staff to review the law library's new FY 2024 check-in ledgers, which had been jointly developed at the end of 2023. The ledgers were reviewed and additional adjustments were made for the FY 2025 ledgers. Several law librarians were featured in the kudos section of the Superior Court Operations Unit's water cooler newsletter. In December of 2023, an attorney patron wrote and praised all of the law libraries, all of the law librarians, and the information supplied on our website as, quote, all amazing, unquote. Rockville librarian Emily Omana was mentioned in the March water cooler. Praise was received from a public patron. Quote, Emily listened and in my view coached me through possible sources relative to my particular issue, saving me endless hours of research, unquote. In June, Danbury librarian Rebecca Greenlee and Putnam librarian Amara Johnson, both working in Danbury, were commented on by an attorney doing research for being welcoming and helpful. Also in June, Stanford librarian Pam Kaufman was complimented by a self-represented patron who was feeling overwhelmed and appreciated that Pam was extremely kind and patient. In September's issue, Karen Townsend of the Middletown Library was thanked for her expert help, and Janet Zagato of the Waterbury Library was thanked for providing more than I was hoping for from public patrons. And in the recent June 2024 issue, Rebecca Greenlee appeared twice. One was from an attorney who stated, quote, Rebecca has always shown tremendous knowledge and expertise in performing her duties, always taking extra measure to make sure I am looking in the right place and using my time and the resources efficiently, end quote. And also from a self-represented patron who noted, quote, I had no clue what I was doing. She was able to guide me through the process while being patient, understanding, and with empathy, end quote. Emily Omana was also complimented by a public patron who noted Emily has helped me out quite a bit and deserves a gold star. Some activities in our libraries. On December 15th in 2023, and again on February 3rd in 2024, the New Britain Law Library hosted students for regional high school mock trials. The mock trials were coordinated by the appellate court. In the beginning of the new year, the Judicial Branch Law Libraries were invited to participate in a program at the Connecticut Library Association's annual meeting. The program on legal research support, navigating questions with Connecticut's law libraries, included librarians from the Connecticut State Library and the University of Connecticut School of Law Library. On April 30th, Chris Roy represented our unit in that program in Groton. In February, Torrington Law Librarian Tara Nagati was accepted into the Employee Education Development Unit's lead training program offered by Franklin Covey. Emily Omana was accepted into the Franklin Covey SEED program, and both have completed their respective programs. In April, Jeff Dowd and New Haven librarian Danielle Bean reviewed the headers of all 129 law by subject pages and corrected them to ensure that all pages have the same 3 key elements in the headers: a menu bar across the top, a search box, and a link to the Ask a Librarian service. On April 15th, Chris Roy and Jeff Dowd, together with librarians Michael Beetham and Tara Nagati, conducted a pre-bench presentation providing the 21 newly appointed 2024 Superior Court judges with information about the Law Library Services Unit and the library services and resources available to them. On April 26th, I participated in the AI Northeast Regional Roundtable for the Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Law Libraries project from the University of Arizona. Participation in the Northeast Regional Roundtable was by invitation, and it was held at Suffolk University Law School in Boston. On May 20th, the Judicial Branch summer intern Christopher Gilbert from Seton Hall University School of Law commenced working in the New Haven Law Library. The intern assisted the librarians with reference research, performed link checks, and shelf reading. He also created, under the direction of Mike Beetham and Jeff Dowd, a new law by subject page on drones. His internship ended on August 9th. On June 10th, as Deputy Director, I was appointed to the revised Access to Justice Commission for the Judicial Branch. Several law librarians have been appointed to the following subcommittees of the Commission. Law Libraries and Law Schools Subcommittee, myself, Chris Roy, Molly Steinmetz, and Karen Townsend. The Self-Represented Access Issues Subcommittee, Taryn Agati, and the Legal Aid Subcommittee, myself, Sean Carey, Rebecca Greenlee, and Emily Omano. On July 25th, as Deputy Director, I was appointed to the branch's Committee on Artificial Intelligence in the Connecticut Legal System. This is a one-year appointment. On August 1st, Stanford Law Librarian Molly Steinmetz was appointed to the State Library's Advisory Council for Library Planning and Development. This is a 2-year appointment running through July 2026. The unit's prior representative, Middletown librarian Karen Townsend, ended her 2-year appointment in June. On August 20th, Jeff Dowd and Judge Support Services attorney Adam Harvey delivered a program on basic Connecticut civil procedure for all of the law librarians. This program was based on a similar one provided back in 2005. Jeff wished to provide this training as his parting gift to the rest of the staff. Chris Roy, Mike Beetham, Taryn Agati, and Emily Berardino of New Britain Law Library provided 2 orientation trainings to incoming Superior Court law clerks. The sessions were held on September 13th and October 18th. As more titles produced by legal publishers change from supplemented bound volumes to paperback volumes reprinted each year as updated editions, our libraries are struggling with the questions regarding purchase and retention of these titles, especially for those titles where yearly changes to the law and content are minimal. In response to this, we have formed the Connecticut Titles Archive Work Group to look at this issue for the Connecticut-specific practice titles to which we currently subscribe. The work group is tasked with determining which titles should be purchased yearly, which titles could be purchased at longer intervals, which titles should have yearly versions retained as archival holdings, which titles do not need yearly versions archived, and do all the law libraries need to retain and archive the versions, or could certain libraries be tasked with retaining all versions for the system overall? Waterbury Law Librarian Janet Zagato is the lead for the work group. Other members are Peter Jenkins from New London, Karen Townsend, Mike Beetham, and Anna Dauphiny. On September 27th, Mike Beetham, Taryn Agati, and Emily Berardino provided orientation training to incoming Supreme and Appellate Court law clerks. In October, Rebecca Greenlee was appointed to the American Association of Law Libraries, AALL, Government Law Library Special Interest Sections, Access to Justice Best Practices Committee for 2024-2025. Chris Roy and Hartford Law Librarian Sean Carey provided an overview of the law library services to self-represented parties and access to justice issues to a University of Connecticut School of Law Access to Justice class on October 1st. On October 17th, New London librarian Peter Jenkins hosted a visit of librarians, from the Connecticut General Assembly's Legislative Library within the Office of Legislative Research. 4 librarians spent over an hour touring the New London Library, and the librarians expressed their appreciation for the help they received from the Judicial Branch law librarians and for our legal research guides. On October 25th, Karen Townsend attended the Law Librarians of New England's annual conference held at the McKernan Center in South Portland, Maine. The topic of the conference was the role of law libraries in the age of AI, and was co-sponsored by the University of Maine School of Law Library and the Maine State Law and Legislative Reference Library. In November, Rebecca Greenlee was appointed to the Standing Committee on Services to Prisoners within the Social Responsibilities Special Interest section of AALL. And on November 1st, Christopher Roy was appointed to the Judicial Branch Web Board. This is a 3-year appointment which will expire in 2027. The work of our committees. The Education and Training Subcommittee. Since December 1st of 2023, the law librarians have received a total of 339 hours of training and delivered 81.5 hours of formal training. On May 2nd, the committee coordinated a webinar program on emotional intelligence in the workplace for the unit. The informative program was offered by Tracy Thibbert from the EAP. On June 10th, the unit's annual staff development meeting was held over Teams. The 2-hour program entitled Criminal Erasure and Sealing of Criminal Records was presented by Ralph D'Agostine and Caroline Fargeorge, Deputy Directors for Criminal Matters, and Toby Patagendis, Program Manager for Criminal Matters. The committee selected this topic due to the recent statutory changes regarding automatic erasures for certain criminal records and the increase of questions regarding this matter being received in our libraries. On June 20th and 26th, Luke Mady, an appellate court clerk, presented training sessions on appellate filing process for the librarians. Attorney Mady offered the program to update the librarians on the rule changes affecting filing of appeals. The presentation was informative and provided the librarians with information and the tools needed to assist people in starting the appellate process and in providing accurate referrals to the appellate court. The Marketing Committee. In early March, the committee finalized their collaboration with the Judicial Branch graphic designer to create this year's Law Day poster. This year's theme was Voices of Democracy. The final poster included the ABA theme and a graphic encouraging voting. Copies were distributed to all libraries and clerks' offices in time for May celebrations. The committee produced and distributed the annual Law Library calendar for 2025-2026. In November, a total of 3,716 calendars were distributed. The committee also prepared notices providing information on selected services and resources, which were sent to the Contact listserv, which is an email list for public librarians in Connecticut. The Outreach and Training Committee. In February, the committee completed the instructional and informational videos for both law by subject pages and research guides. At the end of the month, both videos were placed on the branch's YouTube page, and on the branch's homepage was an announcement about the videos and also an announcement via the X account. In November, the committee submitted a proposal for a program for the April 2025 Connecticut Library Association Conference. The proposal was accepted on November 27th. We have participated in CLA conferences in both 2023 and 2024. The Cataloging Committee. In February, the Catalog Committee initiated the Nutshell Conversion Project, in which all libraries changed their catalog records for their Nutshell titles into serial records. The project was completed on May 30th and condensed 695 records to 175. On September 4th, the committee restarted Phase 1 of the cataloging project. Phase 1 consists of a shelf read of all titles listed in the catalog for each library. Librarians will remove holdings that are no longer in their library and add titles that are in the library but not listed in the catalog. The first status report on the project is due at the end of the calendar year. Inmate Correspondence Service. Since the last meeting, a total of 201 written requests for materials were received from inmates, with 2,997 pages of information being sent to them. Intranet and Internal Librarian Blog Committee. There were 93 blog entries posted on the librarian's internal blog in the past year, covering staff development opportunities, educational articles, branch announcements, agency notice, and other general information of interest. During the month of April, the committee worked with the Information Technology Division web group to move our internal blog to the SharePoint online platform, which Judicial is now utilizing. Interlibrary loan group. During this period, the libraries requested 8 items from libraries or institutions outside of our library system. One of the requests was from a research clerk at the Supreme Court, and the item was cited in the footnote of Idilibi versus Hartford Current Company. Newslog Committee. As the end of September 2024, the Newslog had 955 subscribers. This is an increase of 59 subscribers since December of 2023. The Research Guide Committee. The committee updated 47 guides since the last meeting, which amounts to 1,922 pages being reviewed. Emily Omano created a new research guide on petition for new trial. This expands our criminal guide offerings to 4. Remote reference. During the past year, the law librarians responded to 1,052 email questions submitted through the Ask a Librarian service and 1,628 email questions submitted through the Judicial Branch web feedback service. The law librarians engaged in 220 chat sessions, which generated an additional 39 follow-up email exchanges. The committee also revised the remote reference policy to include all librarians being assigned to the role of backup on a rotating basis. The committee then consulted with information technology divisions to develop guidelines for assessing the risks of opening patron-sent attachments, which are becoming much more common. Additionally, the committee obtained a Spanish translation of the template response for obtaining a divorce decree, one of the most frequently received questions. Training Subcommittee. The subcommittee members provided 40 hours of formal training, which included the pre-bench training for 22 new Superior Court judges and a family support magistrate, training for the Superior Court legal research clerks, the Appellate Court law clerks, and Judicial Branch legal services staff. Reference Self-Represented Info Committee. The committee chair created guidelines for members to use when reviewing and updating existing videos and POM cards. All videos are currently under review, with 2 in the revision production stage. On December 11th, 2023, a new self-represented party information video was published, titled Connecticut Civil Lawsuit, Residential Summary Process Eviction, Landlord. And lastly, the webpage committee. Since December 2023, the Law Library website has had 5,228,464 hits from 591,913 visitors. On April 4th, the members of the committee and other link checkers were trained by Caitlin Marshall, an information technology analyst, on how to use Visual Studios for web editing on web pages with the left side accordion menus. This expands the number of pages to which law library staff can now update themselves. And that is the end of the report.
Excellent. Thank you, Claudia. I have 2 questions. One, the 81.5 hours of training that were given, did that include the Westlaw training, or is that a separate bucket?
I'm trying to remember
the Westlaw training is for you received 339 hours. The law librarians received that much training and gave 81.5 hours, I thought you said?
Yes, 81.5. It can include the Westlaw training. It also includes any other sort of training they might have done, where if there was a new court officer and they wanted to know how to use Hein Online, or they needed to know how to use Shepard's. So it includes any type of formal training we offered.
And then my other question was about this 5 million figure in internet traffic. Is that an increase? Was that an increase in traffic over last year?
I don't have the answer to that question. I will look it up and find it for
Okay.
you.
I'm curious because both Attorney Clenenden as well as Professor DePerio Whitman asked questions about budget. The professor in terms of our resources and negotiating contracts to lower the prices, and Attorney Clenenden around the cost and complexity of, solo practitioners and attorneys using the services. I was just curious if this increase is being absorbed well given your budget.
Those are two different things. The 5 million is our website. So that's when you go to the judicial branch and you go to our site on there for the law libraries. That's our research guide, our law by subject pages, all of that information there. What Professor DePerio and Attorney Clendenin were referring to were our Westlaw, Lexis, and those types of online databases. Those are not accessible through the website. Those are when people come in and actually utilize them through our e-research portal, which is only accessible from internal. You cannot access that from external.
I see. Thank you. Any
follow up on that question that you just reminded me about? We use the Westlaw Access in our office, and I won't tell you how incredibly expensive it is. We use other things, but that's our primary research tool. And I've talked to a number of other lawyers, and they find that very expensive. And I'm just trying to figure out whether the law libraries are being used more. And that was my question, I think, last time, by solos and small firms, which would affect that. It's not that we get advantage of the world, or the Updikes or all of them that have that access. But what I'm concerned about is your smaller law firms and groups having access to the latest research, because if you get a question from Judge Clark or you, Judge Taylor, you've got to have the answer. And if you don't have access to the best, you're kind of in trouble. I'm trying to figure out if we're seeing more of a usage by those folks because they can't afford those kind of services. And then the follow-up on that is, what would be the impact on our budget needs going forward? Because I realize they have to go in, they have to utilize the great law librarians that we have and all that. And I'm just trying to get my head around it, because in some of the cases we see this real garbage coming out, from some of the firms, and they all want to do the best they can. And I'm wondering about the budget aspects of that.
We don't ask people whether they're attorney or public patron when they're using Westlaw or Lexis in our facilities. Any patron can walk in. We now have it sort of set as a click and go, so they just click on and go on. We don't even have to intervene. So I couldn't tell you how many of them are attorneys because we don't track that type of information. Little bit of a privacy issue. We try to leave people their anonymity as much as possible. How it impacts us, we are not finding, what we are looking at from budget perspective is we have so many simultaneous licenses. Are we ever tapping out of that and getting refusal of service? We have rarely ever hit that point. And the time we do hit it, it's usually actually during some staffing changes going on in the court, and people are temporarily using that resource just for a week or two. So we have not had a problem of hitting a denial of service. We've come up close to all the licenses, but never to a complete usage of all. And that's what we use to judge where we set the licensing for our budget negotiations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Judge, I had another question, if you wouldn't mind, then I'll shut up. You had mentioned about this project that you've got about looking at the renewals, and the question you're task force is looking at is whether or not every library should update all the Connecticut materials. And I just would like to ask that as they consider this, I really think it's important that we come up with a system that lets people know, whether they're self-represented or lawyers, that an item may not be up to date, because what I've found in my practice is I get things that people cite that are out of date and they thought they got it right and then they didn't. And I think there needs to be some sort of warning or label or whatever, particularly with self-represented, to know that they may not have the latest information.
All of the items, if a publication is even a year out of date, there is usually a sticker indicating that it is not updated. And for the libraries that are keeping them up, we do a lot of interlibrary loan or scanning of information between our libraries. So if somebody came in to, say, Emily's library in Rockville, and maybe the administrative law treatise was not being kept up every single year, but every other year, but they needed to see something from this year to see whether or not an addition had been added, she would be able to get a scan of that section from the Hartford Law Library in a short period of time in order for them to see that. So that is sort of built into the thought of where are the archive copies or the current copies going to be, and then that sharing across the system of them.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments about the report? I just have one other thing. You mentioned that how to access a divorce decree was one of the most commonly asked questions. I'm curious, what are the, maybe you might not know this off the top of your head, but I'm interested in what like the top 5 are questions that you get.
Divorce decree is one of them. Paying a parking ticket or, ticket fine using the CIB is another common referral we do. We do have, Emily, I'm going to ask you to help me out here. What would you say for the librarian, not necessarily JB feedback? What are some of the lead questions?
I think there is a lot of similarity between the questions we get in Ask a Librarian and the JB feedback inbox. I'd say some of the most common ones do involve having to refer people to places like jury administration so they can get information about their jury service, questions about how to get other copies of records from their court cases, or questions about trying to reschedule or postpone a hearing date. We'll often refer those types of questions to the clerk's office. And the ones that we might have to do research for involve a lot of things like family cases, people asking general questions about their custody rights, and relocating with a minor child is a pretty common one that comes up in those situations.
That's as I suspected it was quite heavy on the family law area. People who have, okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Civil, a lot of writing motions that are not standard. So they want to do something that is not a standardized form. They'll be sent to us from the clerk. So for both family and general civil, we'll often get, do you either have an example of this type of motion as a pre-done template, or we give them the general blank template and then we refer them to our video on how to write a motion, which just talks about what elements should you think about and include when you are proposing a motion.
Excellent. All right. Other questions, comments? Claudia, I can't thank you and your staff enough for the excellent work you do. Here in Middletown, at least, we always get notices if there's a closure of the law library, so that, we're well aware of that. At least here, I would imagine that's the same around the state, but kudos to you and your staff for the excellent work that you do and continue to do. If there is nothing else, is there any new business we need to discuss? Judge Johnson. I think you're still muted. There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me now?
Yes.
All right. This was an excellent presentation. And I had a request from another committee I'm on that I think is appropriate for this group. So the Judges Association has been working on wellness seminars and presentations, and we've done things over the last year on a monthly basis. One of the requests is for a presentation from judges based on their writing outside of the legal field. So I wanted to ask this committee if they would be kind enough, including the librarians, to forward any names of published judges who write either legal historical books. We're not looking for specific legal procedure books, but people like Judge Henry Cohen, who's written quite a few books, Tom McGousher, who also has written, but there must be other judges who also have written books that are published and available. And we want to use them as an opportunity to have a workshop or a seminar in the future. The Hartford librarian and I had a very brief discussion, and he said he would look into it and start compiling a list for me. But it would be great also if some judges wrote fiction who we weren't aware of. But if you could assist us with this, you can forward any information to myself, Judge Robin Johnson, and I will present that to the Judges Association and get in touch with those judges. I think a lot of people want to be budding authors, but it's a lot of work. And I hope that either librarians or even other professionals on this call could assist us with identifying people who've overcome that hurdle and actually have gotten published.
Judge Johnson, in addition to Judges Cohen and McCowsher, Judge Shea, if I'm not mistaken, is published. I want to say he's a
SHEA?
SHAY.
AY, okay.
And I want to say he writes military or historical. Don't quote me, but I know I'm pretty sure
Okay.
he's a
Revolutionary
published
War.
author. And also Judge Blue wrote a
Yes.
book about
The Piglet, there's law
That- yes.
story, yes. It's little anecdotes of interesting laws.
mhm.
That would be excellent, excellent.
Judge McCowsher, you mentioned, he's written at least one book, but every time I turn around, he's written some other op-ed
Oh, yeah.
piece on the branch, so he's writing all the time.
Absolutely.
I can't think of any others. I want to say there's someone who's written a children's book, but if I think of it, I'll forward you the information.
Okay. We have another hand up.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, this is Damon Wosensky. I put in the chat for the meeting. Matthew Netchie wrote a fiction book. I put a link to some sort of story about it. If you want to click on that.
oh, okay. Uncorking guest. Oh, great. Thank you. Uncorking a story. Excellent. All right. Thank you, Judge Johnson. Is there any new business we need to discuss? Claudia, anything you need from this committee that you can think of off the top of your head?
Attorney Wisniewski had another question.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
Thank you. I just had a quick question along the same lines as the last comment about wellness. And I know that employee wellness is a big topic in a lot of workplaces recently. And are there a lot of judicial branch employees who use the law library as kind of a break area or a gathering area, or is there any opportunity to offer services like that to judicial branch employees and possibly other people who might be find themselves in court and might want to take a break.
You mean in terms of a wellness program or just the opportunity to use the space?
Well, and I'm thinking maybe both, an opportunity to use the space, but also if there might be something to periodically bring people together, like the program about judges who are authors, you know, is one example of something. But that got me thinking about, is there anything else that could be offered to judicial management employees through the law libraries? Is that another, you know, diversification of our services that could be offered that might be valuable to judicial branch employees?
Okay.
Employees are welcome into our space just like anyone else, just as the public who are waiting in the courthouse can come in and use the space they can use the space to sit, to read, to relax, to research. Staff and court employees can and do use the space the same way. Unlike a public library, there's not like a maker space where somebody can come in and, you know, have a phone conversation or have a conference with a client or another person. It is because our spaces are very small. The point is to stay quiet and be engaged in research or doing whatever you're doing, but on a quiet level. As for wellness for court employees, we're happy to engage in that, but we do have that employee education development unit, and part of their mission is just that, providing training and programming on wellness for judicial branch employees. They even have regular quarterly emails that list resources that go out to all branch employees that we can click on and get those services. They're also a funnel for the EAP along with HR, again, for that support. So that need really is sort of being addressed in the branch through these other two units. But if there are great suggestions of how we can work with them to provide that, we're always open for that type of thing.
And thinking, because I'm pretty heavily involved in the Russell Library in Middletown, and I in thinking about, you know, the conversations that we have over there. And that's the public library, by the way, for anyone who's not familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
We talk often about the importance of having the library as a third place for people to be. And I'm not saying that the law library should fill that particular function, but, you know, just a way of expanding services to show to people who might have a computer, you know, in their office, or, you know, other resources, how valuable this service can be, and to draw folks in. So, you know, just maybe something that I'll think about, you know, between now and the next meeting. Certainly, if I have any suggestions, I know how to reach out to you. So,
and the Russell Library is such a vibrant community center with all sorts of wonderful things going on. I see how you might want to think about ways that law libraries can do that as well, because it really does a great service to the Middletown community, that library. All right. Any other questions, comments, discussion? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn? Professor Wisniewski moves. Any seconds?
Second.
Judge Clark, Judge Pearson. All right, second. Excellent. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. Thanks again, Claudia, for an excellent report. And you'll be getting notice about our next meeting. Happy holidays to everyone.
Same to you, Judge. Bye-bye, everybody.
thank you all. Happy New Year.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye.